Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Avodah Zarah Lamed Ches. So we are holding right on top Amar Rav Shmuel Bar Rav Yitzchak Amar Rav. So he's quoting Rav. This goes back to the halacha of Bishul Avodas Kachavim. So we learned yesterday that with the Rabbanan, there's an Isser to partake in any food which a guy cooked. And the point is to create that safeguard, to make that added barrier between us and them, to discourage social interaction, which can chas v'shalom lead to intermarriage. Now, does this apply to any type of food cooked by a guy? What if it's something that could be eaten raw? For instance, he cooks up a dish of carrots. So, yeah, it's now cooked instead of raw, but technically it could have been eaten in its raw state. So, in which case the guy didn't really contribute much to the value of this final product. It was really edible beforehand as well. So, there's no isser of bishul akum. So, in fact, he quotes Rav to say that the condition is kol hanechal k'may shu chai, if it's a type of food that can be eaten k'mois shehu chai, as it is, raw. For instance, many vegetables, many fruits. Ein boy mishum bishulei od kachavim. So if a guy should cook it, there's no issue eating it, provided he used a kosher pot, used your pot, in your kitchen. Ein boy mishum bishulei od kachavim. Rashi in Maseches Beya actually says it out. He says, "The kima shenechal k'mois shehu chai," since it can be eaten raw. Einoi bishul, einoi bishul. It's not an act of cooking, so to speak. And he says, "Lo yahane midi," because he isn't really helping you much. You could eat it without the cooking. So, if the point is to keep away, to avoid partaking in their meals and their foods that they're serving you, that they're preparing for you, which can engender closeness and facilitate, friendship, etc. That's only if it's something of value. He's feeding you something that he prepared for you. This is already prepared beforehand, meaning it was edible before he came along. So it's not considered food prepared by a guy, right, to a certain extent. So Besura, in the town of Surah, they would learn it this way, in the name of Rav, right? Edible, not edible, raw. Besura masnuach. B'Pumbedisa, however, in the town of Pumbedisa, they had a different version of Rav's rule. Masnuach, they learned as follows. Amar b'Shmuel bar Yitzchak Amar Rav, again quoting Rav, Kol she'ein nechal al shulchan malachim. If this type of dish is not going to be eaten, not going to be served on a shulchan malachim at a formal state dinner, the lavas boys are passed together with the bread as a main feature in the meal. So if it doesn't have that quality, it doesn't have that chashivus, then once again it does not fall into this under this banner of bishuli akum, which only applies to something which has significance, something which is served at a formal dinner, something which you would invite your friend over. So ein by mishum bishulei oivdikachav. Might be not any difference between the two conditions just stated. The first of which is it only applies to something which could not be eaten prior to cooking. The second condition is only something which is served at a formal dinner. I'll tell you some examples. Dagim katan. So in the following, there will be a difference between the first and second condition. Dagim katan. We have small fish, little sardines. Can they be eaten raw? No. So according to the first condition, it qualifies. It falls under the Isra of Bishul Akum. Whereas according to the second condition, it's not served at a formal dinner. It's not something that you would, invite your friend over to partake in. It's something not chashiv. Va'ardi, these types of mushrooms, again, must be cooked. But it's not a formal food, b'dais a cereal. It's got to be cooked. So according to the first version, it would be usher if the guy makes it for you. According to the second version, there's no issue because nobody invites his friend over for a cereal. In fact, Tesis brings that L'maisa we paskin, that's how it's brought in Shulchan Aruch, we paskin like both. So we apply both sort of leniencies, and unless something qualifies on both accounts, A, it is only edible after cooking, and B, it needs to be something which is nechal al shulchan melachim, so unless it qualifies on both accounts, there's no concern about bishul akum. Likewise, according to many poskim, it depends on the actual format, the way it's being presented. So, like, even though you would say, for instance, potatoes, right, cannot be eaten raw, and are served al shulchan malachim, but they're only served in a certain fashion, in an elegant way. But if you have like potatoes which are potato chips, right, according to many places, there's no issue because it's not going to be served in this way al shulchan malachim. So it's up to the final product, the way it's being presented in its final product. Amar of Asi Amarav, Dogam Ketanim. So you have these medium-sized fish, which would be a problem if a guy would cook it for you, but if it's maluchim, they're salted. Okay, salted herring, they can be eaten as is, without any further cooking. Ein behen bishum bishulei, even if the guy salted it, there's no issue, because he didn't cook it, he salted it. That would be one issue. Actually, that's not so simple. We'll see later on if when the guy salts something and makes it edible in that fashion, does that make it bishul akum? But let's put that aside for a second. Let's say a yid salted it. Okay, so now it's edible. Now a guy takes it and cooks it. No issue, because it could be eaten as is. Rashi says, it's fully edible on account of its saltiness. So even if the guy enhances it, takes it a step further, and cooks it, so what? Because even without the guy's input, it was already edible. Let's take it a step further. If a guy actually roasts it, he does roast it. So a yid can take this material, roasted by a guy. So it was first salted, made edible, and then it was roasted by a guy. You can take it and use it for the erev tafshilin, to allow him to cook on, on Yontif for the sake of Shabbos, which requires one to put aside a cooked item, which is considered like the initiation of the Shabbos preparation, etc., right? So there we need something which is cooked or roasted. And the guy's roasting, in effect, is making this item suitable for the erev tafshilin, which requires a roasted or cooked food. Nevertheless, right, so even though he's turning it into a roasted item and allowing us to use it for erev tafshilin, we're not going to step back and say, hold it. Well, if it's considered roasted, if it's considered cooked because of the guy's act, because of the guy's masa, okay, now let's consider it bishul akim. No, we don't say that. So you can have it both ways. So again, we have a fish, salted, which made it edible. Going forward, if the guy cooks it or roasts it, there's no issue, because it was already edible without his contribution. But on the other hand, we say that the act of cooking or roasting is appreciated, is noted, to the extent that now you can use it for the erev tafshilin, which you couldn't before the roasting. So we're using the guy's roasting, but we're not making it usher on account of the guy's roasting. So you have it both ways, because each thing has its own parameter. Bishul akum is only if it was made edible by the guy. In this case, it was edible before the guy came into the picture. On the other hand, for erev tafshilin, you need something roasted. So when the guy roasted it, it's considered a roasted product, and now you can use it for erev tafshilin. Furthermore, let's say the guy takes this salted fish that was edible without the further frying, and he turned it into a kasa de harsana. Rashi says it's a type of food, type of dish where they take a flour and they mix it with this fish fat, they roast it. At that point, it's asur, you can't eat it. Why? Because although the fish element was edible without this process done by the guy, but the flour was not. So he cooked the flour, and the flour is now bishalakim. Says more pshita. Well, obviously, this is a fairly simple halacha. Why even discuss it? Ma'odatim, perhaps I would think harsan ikar. Within this concoction, what's the primary feature? Perhaps I would say it's the fish element. In which case, we could just ignore the flour element. Kamashmon. The point is no kimcha ikar. The main component here is the flour, and since the guy cooked it and made it edible, the whole concoction is now asr. Amar Rav Bruna Amar Rav. Oived kicham shehetzis esaur. He lit a fire ba'agam in the swamp full of reeds, and it burnt down the whole area. There happened to be some grasshoppers inside there, and now they're all roasted and toasted. So we know that grasshoppers can be eaten even without shchita. Rashi says, chagav, right, a grasshopper, einoi ton shchita, does not require shchita. So technically a burnt grasshopper would be okay, provided that it's a kosher grasshopper. Says the Gemara, kol hachagavim sheba'agam, all the grasshoppers discovered in this area, asurin, are forbidden. Hechidami, what exactly happened? Ilema, is it because the loyada haytoher, he's not sure, it was burnt beyond recognition, he can't identify which is the tar species, which is the tameh. If that's the issue, my area ovid kicham, so why get involved with a guy lighting the fire? What does it got to do anything? Even if a Jew would have lit the fire and burnt the area down and toasted those grasshoppers, you're in the same situation. Why get the guy involved? Ella mishum bishula kicham. Apparently the isser here is because the guy roasted those grasshoppers. Well, okay, gavna be usher. Why would it be a problem in this case? He had no intention of preparing those grasshoppers. He was just trying to clear the area of the reeds. Va'amar Avchanan, bar ami, amar p'das, amar b'yechnan, hayav kicham. You have a guy, the charich, he singes the hair off a reisha, head of an animal. Shari l'meichel minei, you can go and partake in that. Even from the tip of its ear, which is very delicate and gets roasted very quickly. So even though through the guy singeing the hair, the ear got somewhat toasted, it's okay. Why? So even though the guy cooked it, apparently, since the guy was just trying to remove the hair off the animal, it wasn't with kavana to prepare your food. Again, the whole bishul akum is to avoid relationship, avoid connection, that personal. There's no personal connection. He was trying to singe the hair off the thing. He wasn't trying to prepare your food. So here as well with the grasshoppers. What's the issue? He was trying to clear the area burn out the reeds. There's no issue with that. You're right. It's unrelated to bishul akum. That wouldn't be a concern. The problem is that you can't identify. You can't tell which is the kosher grasshopper, which is not. And the guy's involvement wasn't really necessary for the halacha or masa shaya. It so happens that the story that took place with a guy, but really the same issue would apply if a Yisrael lit the fire. Gufa, let's go back to the halacha. Amar Rav Chanan bar Ami Rav Das, or Rav Yechanan. If the guy singes the hair off the head of the animal, the yid can go and eat the flesh. So based on this halacha, let's take it a step further. The shada sichsalatuna. A guy takes a wooden peg used to tie down the tent, right? So it has to be dried up. They throw it into the oven. Sichsa a peg, latuna into the oven to dry it up. He wasn't trying to cook anything. He was trying to heat up this thing. The kavar by Yisrael, and it happens to be a yid, had beat him to it and had buried, so to speak, a gourd, a melon, meikara, before the guy came along. He buried into the ashes in the bottom of the oven. And now the guy lit the fire for his peg, and his gourd, the gourd that the Yisrael placed there beforehand, is now cooked and ready to eat. Is that a problem of bishul akum? Sharper dummy, it's perfectly edible, it's fine. You know why? Because he had no clue that there was a melon in there. He had no intention. He had no kavanah to cook your food. Right? It was just a consequential thing, and it does not qualify for bishul akum. Pshita, well, says the Gemara, what's the added chiddush here over the previous halacha of Rabbi Yochanan? It's the same exact type of case. Ma'odadim, perhaps I would think, here it's different. L'v'shulei manaka machavan. He's trying to cook the peg, right? He's trying to, extract the liquid to dry it up. In fact, it probably softens a bit before it gets hard. So perhaps it's really undergoing a sort of a cooking process. So the guy really is engaged in cooking something, in which case the gourd that's cooked in there should be considered part of that cooking experience initiated by the guy, and should be usher on account of bishul akum. Mashma, the point of the chiddush is no, l'shruri manaka machavan. He's trying to cook anything. L'shruri, trying to harden, stiffen the mana, the kli. That's all he's trying to do. And Rashi adds, Kamashmon, the in bishul b'kelim. There's no cooking by kelim. He's not cooking. He's just hardening it. He's doing a totally different act. In which case, although by doing so, it so happens that the melon got cooked, but it's totally consequential, unrelated to the guy's kavana and actions. Amar B'dam Shmuel. Okay, a new story. Hiniach Yisrael basar al gabi gechalim. A yid placed a cut of meat on the barbecue on the coals. Uba ovid kechavim v'havach bay. Comes along a guy and flips it over to facilitate, to expedite the cooking process. Mutter, you can eat it. Hey chidami, what exactly took place? Ilema, are we speaking the ilay havach bay? If the guy wouldn't flip it over, have a bashal, it would still cook. Then obviously it's okay. Pshita, obviously. I mean, the guy didn't do anything. It was the Jew's act. Elalav, it must be. Dilay hafach, if not for the guy who's flipping it over, lay have a bashal. It would never have gotten cooked. So then the question is, am I mutter? Why is it mutter? Bishulay ovid kechavim. It's considered cooked by a guy. Because without his contribution, it would never have gotten anywhere. Leitzricha must be speaking that eventually it would actually roast, it would cook fully, but it would take a very long time. And the guys, flipping it over actually expedited it. That's an interesting question. If not for his flipping it over, have a bashal batar to show you, it would get cooked, but it would take 2 hours. Now that he flipped it, it's only going to take you an hour. Perhaps I would think, kiruve bishulei, hastening the cooking process, expediting it, bishmilsahi, is something to be reckoned with. Kamash, when the point is no. We just discount that point. So although he benefited the owner by flipping the thing and getting it to go faster, but that's not called bishul akum, because the act of the Yisrael on its own, independent of the guy's contribution, could have achieved the same results, albeit, a bit lengthier. Asks the Gemara, is that so that this is considered mutter? Rabbi Yechon tells us, if a yid places food on a fire, food in a pot, and it's cooking up to the point of machal ben dersoy, it's a third cooked or half cooked according to the Rambam, which was the way this fellow ben dersoy, who was a bandit, would eat his food in a hasty, uncooked fashion. So if it's just a third, or according to some shittas, a halfway cooked, it's technically, halachically considered edible. So now if the guy comes and gets involved in the cooking process, it doesn't matter. We don't care about the guy completing the cooking process, because, as we said, since it got to the point of a third, halachically it's deemed cooked, and what happens going forward doesn't really concern us. Let's infer from here, right? It's only because it already achieved that, level of cookiness. But ha'enai, let's say it's still below that mark, like in the previous case, where the yid had just placed a cut of steak on the coals, and now the guy came along and tinkered with it. You think it is considered bishul akum because the guy's involvement took place at a very early state, before the thing was still considered cooked. So how could we allow it in that case? Some says the Gemara, you're right. When Rabbi Yechon stipulates that the guy's arrival can only take place after it achieved that minimal level of being cooked. Otherwise, it's problematic. Some could go into Isri Basilta. What happened was the Yid started, and then he took it off the fire, put it into Basilta, put it into a basket. So basically, he took it off the flame. That terminates the cooking process. And the guy came and took it and put it back in the oven. Oh, so if it had not yet achieved the minimal mark of Machamed Risoy, you have a problem, because now the guy took something that was off the flame, that was not actually cooking at the time. So technically, he took something raw, and now he cooked it for you. As opposed to our story, where the steak was still sitting on the coals. Nobody asked the guy to flip it. Just leave it there. It's going to take 2 hours, fine. So he decided to tinker with it, to flip it. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter at what state he did it, even if it was completely raw. Because had the guy not come, the thing would have gotten cooked by way of the Yisrael's act. So in that case, it's kosher. You find the same concept in a brisa. If he places meat on coals, and the guy comes along and flips it, turns it over. He's tending to the barbecue until the Yisrael comes back from the shul or from the Beis HaMedrash. No problem. There's no concern of bishul akum. Regarding kashrus, apparently there's no concern either. The Yisrael is around the corner. The guy's afraid he's going to show up any second, and he's going to get into trouble if he tries to, play any games. Likewise, a woman can place her kedera, or pot, on the stove. Ubas, and her next door neighbor, the goy, can come and mix it for her until she returns from wherever. From from the shul. Some say switch it to Ayman Ashuk, or she comes back from the store. Again, there's no concern about bishul akum. Why? Because in both cases, it was slated to get fully cooked by way of the Yisrael, even without the guy's involvement. So his involvement doesn't actually harm anything. Now comes a question. Let's play this thing out in the reverse. So now we had a Yisrael initiating and the guy completing it. It doesn't bother me. What about if a guy started the process and the Yid came along and, came and assisted in the cooking process? Do we look at the guy who initiated it, or do we look at the Yisrael who completed the preparation? The guy placed the food on the fire and the Yisrael came and flipped it around and he enhanced it and completed the process. Now, what's the halacha? Of course it's good. Of course it's good. If in the previous case, despite it had been completed by the guy did the finishing touches, it's still okay, due to the Yisrael's initial involvement. So it's considered bishul Yisrael, it's attributed to the Yisrael. Certainly in this case where the Yisrael completed the process, so it's like being served by the Yisrael. Gemara b'yad Yisrael, koshkan, of course it's okay. So basically we take this svara and we go both ways, lekula. So whether the Yisrael started or completed it, it's attributed to him and it's kosher. Itmar nami. We learned likewise. Amar Rav bar Brachana Rabbi Yechanan. Some say it was Amar Rav Acha bar Brachana Rabbi Yechanan. Either way, it's okay. Bein sheniach oived kicham v'avchi. So whether the guy placed the food on the fire and the Yid came along and turned it over and flipped it, or bein sheniach Yisrael v'avach oived kicham, or the Yisrael started and the guy finished it. Mutter, it's okay. Bein asur. The only time it's asur is if it was done completely by the guy from start to finish. Ad shtei tchilasoi ugemori b'yadev kichav. Amar Ravina, hilchasa, the halacha is So now we shift to bread, which also has to be cooked by baked by Yisrael. Hilchasa harifta. So this bread, the sugar means the flame on the oven, was initiated by a goy. It's a whole big process to get the oven fire going, right? All those who are familiar with the campfire phenomenon, it's a whole big deal. How to get something started with spindles and right to the logs, right? So if the guy did that part, va'afa Yisrael, but the Yid came along and placed the dough in the oven, so he actually baked. Inami, or the other way, shagar Yisrael, the Yid lit the fire, va'afa, the guy actually baked the bread. Inami, or third option is shagar va'afa, the guy lit and baked the bread, but Yisrael came along and he stoked the flames. V'as Yisrael v'chatabachitu, he stoked the flames to enhance the heat, to expedite the process. Shaper dummy, and all these, it's okay, as long as there was, significant input on account of the Yisrael. Now, interestingly, the Gemara does not speak about throwing in a little splinter. It's either he lit the fire, either the Jew placed the bread in the oven, or he stoked the flames. Says Tosfos. In fact, it sounds from the Gemara that the Yid has to actually be makarev habishol ksas. He has to expedite the process. He has to actually do a significant contribution to the process. So, where do we get this idea of throwing in a little kisam? Umashenagu lahashlach kisam, says Tosfos, l'teichatan, this minute to throw in a little, where does that come from? It's not having much of an impact on the cooking or baking process. He says, we rely on mashayesh b'dvarim. This is one of those items that are up for contention between Bnei Bavel and Bnei Eretz Yisrael. He says, the Ka'amar Bnei Bavel mashlichen kesem ataner. It's known that the Bnei Bavel, those who live in Bavel, talmud-bavli people, they actually allow themselves to, just throw a kisam, a little splinter, a little peg of wood into the fire, and that's enough. As long as there's some contribution by the Yisrael, that's sufficient. Ubnei Ma'ar, but the ones in Yisrael, they say, nah, that's a joke. Kisam zed this splinter, malam amard. What good is it? How is it helping? How is that going to change the equation? And he says, us, v'onu nimshachan achar bnei bavel v'talmudim, we're talmud-bavli people, we follow bnei bavel. Hence, we allow even a little splinter to do the trick. Now, this is all regarding pas, right? Bread, pas akum. So one of these elements, one of these contributions, either one is enough. What about bishul akum? Right? There's no discussion in the Gemara about bishul akum. If a Yisrael lights a fire, all that, we haven't discussed that. So, it's machlekes rishonim. Some say it works the same way, as long as the Yisrael was somewhat involved, whether he lit the fire, whether he placed the pot, whether, right? And that's how the Ramah paskins, but the Shulchan Aruch paskins like the stringent opinion of the rishonim that lighting a fire is only sufficient by bread, because the lighting of the oven is a whole complicated process. So it's considered a significant contribution. But regarding lighting a flame under a stove, under a pot, that's not very substantial, and that doesn't really do the trick. You have to actually place, the Yid has to actually place the food on the fire, the pot on the fire, and that's how the Sfardim conduct themselves. Okay, continue the Gemara. Dog maliach. So we're back to the herring, the salted fish, that a guy salted and made it edible. No. Can a Yid eat it? Chizkiya shari. According to Chizkiya, it's okay because salting is not cooking. Although the salting process makes it edible. But that's not called bishul akum. Rav Yochanan, no asar. He banned it. He said it's asar because, as Rashi says, dizehu bishulei. Look, right? We say many times in the Gemara, maliach, kireiseach, something heavily salted, is considered as though it's cooked. He made it edible. He made it salt. So it's considered like he cooked it, and it's asr. Another question, beit atzli, a roasted egg in its shell, right? It was roasted by the guy, as is. Bar kapara, shari allowed it because, according to Rashi, there's no direct contact between the guy and the edible material because it's covered by a shell. It doesn't relate to him. It's not considered like food prepared by a guy. Rabbi Yochanan asar. Once again, Rabbi Yochanan says it's asr because it's something which could not have been eaten without this process, and he prepared it for you, so it's a bishul akum. Ki asr Rav Dimi. When Rav Dimi came along, Amar, he explained, Echad dag maliach. whether it's the salted fish, ve'echad beit tzluya, or the roasted egg, the machlekes goes like this. Chizkiya ubar kapara, both of them, shor, they allowed in both cases. Rabbi Yochanan, asar, he disallowed in both cases. There was a story about Rav Chia Parva, that was his name. Ikla, he took a visit, lebei resh gusa, to the household of the head of the community in Bavel, where there were some unworthy members, as we're going to see. There was some mafioso living there. Amarle, they were Yidden, but they were of the intimidating variety. Amarle, they asked him Ashayla. They were makbid in Hilchas Kashrus. Could we eat the beit tzluya mai? What's the halach of the roasted egg that our butler roasted this morning? Amarle says, look, chizke b'kaparu shari, they allowed. Rabbi Yochanan asar, he doesn't allow it. Ve'en dvar shleich makim shnayim, and it's a single opinion, Rabbi Yochanan against the other two, and we don't have to reckon with that opinion. Basically, it's good to eat. It's kosher. Amar lahu Rav Zvid. So Rav Zvid, who was standing there, turned to him and says, no, lo yisatzisula, you can't, don't accept it from him. Because Hachi Amar Abaye told us, Hilchasakav said Rabbi Yochanan. In this case, we pass on Rabbi Yochanan. So the egg is off limits. They weren't very very happy with his psak, ashkiyu, and neguta. They gave him to drink a little drink of the chalav, sharp vinegar, a glass of vinegar, and that was the end of that. V'nach passed away. So apparently they were more interested in kashrus than anything else. Tanarabban, hakar frisen. What about items which are edible raw? Right? So as mentioned earlier, even if the guy decided to cook it for you and certainly enhanced it, but it doesn't matter because it was edible without his input. Hakar frisen, this is an element of the tzlaf plant. Rashi says it's the shaymer of the pri, it's the coating around the berry or whatever, so it's technically edible as is, but some would cook it. So if it was cooked by a guy, vakafloites, this is the karsi leek. Again, it's edible raw. Vamatlaya, which we're going to explain later. Vachamin, hot water. Right? You go on a plane, they serve you hot water. Cooked by a guy. Vaklayas, or these roasted grains, puffed wheat or whatever. Shalahan of the goyim. Mutar, and all these items are mutar because some are eaten raw. And by the chamin and the klayas, Rashi says there was no significant change. So even though it was heated and roasted, there's no change to it. It still has its original format, right? And certainly it was edible raw. So you're okay. What about a beit tzluya, roasted egg? Asura, that's asur. In contrast to Chizkiya and Bakapar, who allowed it, this Brisa says it's asur. What about oil from a goy shemen? Oh, Rabbi Danose Beistina, Rabbi Danose and his bez, Nimnolav, Bitiru, they voted on it and they will matter it as we discussed the other day. So what exactly is this matlaya item? Tanya, we learned as follows. Hi hamatlaya, this matlaya item is the same as hi pashlaya, it's the same hi shiata. It goes by different names, either matlaya, pashlaya, and shiata. So what exactly is this? How does this? My shiata, Amar Rabba Baruchana or Yechnon. Well, ha'arbayin shnin, it's already 40 years. D'nafek hay uvda mitzrayim, that it's been practiced in Egypt or exported from Egypt. In any case, I'll tell you in a minute how this works. V'Rabba bar Barachana the Deyomar, but he himself, Rabbi Chana himself, said no, it's actually 60 years in running. Hashit and Shnin the Nafik it's already 60 years that they're doing this in Egypt. There's no disagreement in terms of numbers. Each one was relating to where he was holding. Mar B'Shnei. When he said it was only 40 years ago. But when he said it was already 60 years. It was 20 years later, so it was 60 years in the running. So what exactly do they do? What is this metalaya? How do they produce this? So they bring bizra, the karpas seeds, ubizra the kitna and flax seeds, ubizra the shavalilta and tilson, some sort of plant, seeds from that. Then they soak it together, bifshuri, in lukewarm water. So all you really need is lukewarm water. You don't need to be cooked. V'shav kalei, and they leave it in the water until it starts sprouting. They bring this these new earthenware containers, and they fill it with water. They soak some mud, special mud in that water, and then and they take these sprouted seeds and they stick it onto the mud, and while it's in there, they run into the bathhouse, and they go through this, intense workout in the bathhouse, and then they have to come out and sort of cool themselves off. Adonavku. By the time they make it out of the bathhouse, the stuff's already growing. They have a meal, they snack on it. And it chills them. It cools them down. The reshaya from the hair on their head, until the nails, the karai of their feet, so from top to bottom. It cools them off, chills them off. And this is when they would use it on the way out of the bathhouse. So the point here in the Braisa is, let's say the guy decided to cook it instead of soaking it in merely lukewarm, he decided to put it in hot water. It doesn't matter, because Rashi explains it doesn't need that cooking, so it's unnecessary. In which case, the guy is just fifth wheel and does not make it bishul ak. Amar Rav Ashi. So Rav Ashi commented on this phenomenon. He says, Amali Rabbi Chanina responded to this by saying, Milin. It's just hollow words. I don't believe this happens. How could it sprout so quickly while they're in the bathhouse? Va'amrila, some say he said bimilin. It's apparently some sort of sorcery, kishuv type of thing with words, using supernatural powers. Tanarabban hakuspan. Rashi explains this is the material left over of the dates when they would make their beers. They would make date beer, right? So they have the leftover date skins. So they would use it. They would pour some really roasted hot water, boiling hot water on it, and that would make it, edible. That would make it hakuspan shalevdikichavim shahuchmu chamen. So they poured this boiling water on it. They cooked up. They cooked up that water. In a large vat, large pot. So it's a non-kosher pot. Also, you can't use that water. You can't eat the kuspan. So although the kuspan is technically edible raw, so it's not bishul akum, but the problem with the is with the hot water, which was cooked up in this non-kosher pot. But if it's a small kettle, then it wasn't used for anything other than hot water, it's okay. Until what size? Ve'ezah yorah. Tana was considered a small yorah. Amar Rabbi Yana kol she'ein tzipa dror, a certain type of bird. Yachal kadosh b'tzachah can't. The opening is too small to allow this bird in there. So he didn't use it for any meat or anything non-kosher. V'dilma dmuya dmuy v'aylo. Maybe he cut up the bird and then pushed it in. Maybe even through a small opening. Ella kol she'ein reish tzipa dror. The opening of this kettle is too small to allow even the head, the smallest limb of this bird, to get in there. You're safe in terms of the kashrus factor of that pot. As the Gemara of Atani, but we have a Braisa which says even a large pot does not pose a concern. You're a large size pot, a small size pot, mutter, it's okay, you're safe. Like Kash answers like this. Oh, Commander Omar, the earlier halacha, where we're concerned about the non-Jewish pot, is going according to the shita that even if it's nice tam of gam, if the residue, the flavor coming out of the walls is old, it's a day or two old, it's stale, and will have actually a negative effect on the content. It's nice tam of gam, it's spoiled, it's still usher. So you got to be careful to use only kosher pots. Whereas the second brayso is not concerned because he's going to manam like the shita, which says, no, you're saying that tam lifgam mutter, the stale flavor, does not pose a concern. And we assume this pot hasn't been used for 24 hours, so it was left overnight, and that the flavor is most likely stale, in which case you don't have to reckon with it. Omar Rav Sheshes. Here comes a new shayla. Hay mishcha. So you have oil, olive oil, shlika, cooked oil, darmai coming from the guy. So the guy prepared oil. It's asur, you can't eat it. Why? Amar Rav Safra, l'may nechashlo, what's the concern? Imashim yaruvi, perhaps the guy added some wine. Mr. Sorry, that would spoil the product, he wouldn't do it. Imashim b'shuli abdikachav, is it because the guy cooked this oil? Well, it was edible as is before cooking. Nechal kumashucha, you can eat consume oil raw. Is it because of the kashrus concerns about the geisha pots used in the process? Well, that flavor is stale. Nice and tam of gamu, and it's mutter, no issue. Bo minei Rabbi Asi. So the question was posed to Rabbi Asi. Hani ahini. These tamarim, these dates. So back to dates again. Shliki, cooked. The armai by the guy. Mai, what's the story here? So date itself, no concern. if it's edible raw, right? So choli, if they're sweet dates, edible raw, there's no question. The Vadei Shari, certainly they're permissible because the guy's actions didn't really, accomplish. Miriri, on the other side we have bitter dates that are only edible once cooked. Again, there's no question. The Vadei Asuri, since certainly Asiri, they're asur because they were turned edible by the guy's cooking. The question will be mitzi'ai, somewhere in the middle. They're edible, but says Rashi, when you're really desperate, it's not really, really edible without cooking. What's the halach of the guy who cooks it? Amalu, he said, Maiti Boilach. Why are you even asking? Maiti Boilach. The Rebbe, because my Rebbe, my teacher, Asar, he forbade these things. Umonai, who was his teacher? His name was Levi. Shisis, another type of dish, concoction made from flour, of these roasted grains or roasted beans. Rav Shari. Rav says you can eat it. Avua de Shmuel, Velevi, Shmuel's father and Levi, Asri, they forbade. Now, what type of shisisa? You can make it from grains, you can make it from beans. Bechiti usari, they're made from wheat or barley flour. Kuli amali plik the shari, everybody agrees it's okay because typically they wouldn't have any additives. It's just plain grain or whatever, and it's not doesn't contain any problematic ingredients. But lavchi de chala, what if it's made from beans, which, as Rashi explains, are typically sweeter than the other one and require some sort of balancing ingredient? Typically, they throw some vinegar, wine vinegar, of a goy is asr. The challah, which contains vinegar, everybody would agree that it's asr because of the vinegar content. The question will be, the maya. If it's made from the beans, but it only has water as an additive, not the instead of the vinegar. Mar Savar, one sheet holds Gazrin, ha to ha. If we allow this, next time he's going to have it the one with the vinegar. So both are us. Well, Mar Savar, the other opinion holds, look, Gazrin, we're not concerned about one on account of the other. Sure, the vinegar one not, but the water one is okay. There was a different version of this discussion. But lafchi the maya, if it's made with the contains the bean and the water, everybody agrees it's a problem because once it has that additive, you might confuse it with the other one and take the one with the vinegar. The machlekes is the ones made from wheat or barley which don't have any additives. Mar sava gazrinan ha'atuah, one sheet to hold still. You never know if you're going to have this one tomorrow. You're going to have the other one. Eventually, you're going to have the one with the wine vinegar. Ha'atuah. Mar sava, the other sheet to hold. Like gazrinan, not concerned because it's so starkly different. So it's kosher. Amar Rav, says Rav, you should know, Shtrei Mine Shisah, they would do two varieties. Two of these Shisah dishes, Shadar Barzilai Hagil Adi. This man Barzilai sent a gift to David HaMelech while he was escaping Shaul. He sent him some essentials. Amongst them, two types of this Shisah dish. As the pasuk says, Mishkav. He sent him mattresses, vesapos and utensils of clay, yoitzer and pottery, chitim, and wheat and barley, v'kemach, flour v'koli, and this roasted grain dish, upul, v'adashim, and beans, and v'koli, and once again, this roasted thing. So two different types of shisah were sent to David HaMelech, which corresponds to the items we talked about earlier. Says the Gemara, but now that we see an interesting phenomenon, you see basketfuls of these shisah dishes being brought out l'shukid Nardah, to the marketplace of Nardah. So the goyim are bringing them out and to the shukid Nardah, to the marketplaces, and everybody's buying. Apparently, apparently we're not concerned with the shita, the opinion of Levi with Avodah Shmuel, who banned the purchase of all types of shishisah from the goyim. As long as we're careful that it's only the right type, you're okay. Another item mentioned in the Mishnah, which is considered asur, ukvashin. So you have these, pickled items. You have pickles or all types of vegetables that have been pickled. The problem is not the vegetable per se. The problem is shedarkan lasas v'seichen yayin. They're accustomed to adding wine into that juice. So here, the Mishnah says that it's asur ba'achila. You shouldn't eat it, but you could have anah from it. Amar Chizkiya leishona. It's only true ela b'shedarkan. When is it mutar b'hana? When it's only darkan, it's only presumed that wine is added. But it's not a definite thing. So now we sort of bump it down a level. We say, listen, don't eat it, but you can sell it, you can have anah. Aval biyado, but if it's known, you know for a fact that he added wine into this pickle juice. Asur afilu b'hana, in this case, you can't have even anah from it. We give it the same status as tam yenam, wine from a guy. It's asur b'achila and b'hana. Ask the Gemara, but one second. Let's take a look at the Mishnah. We discussed something called murias. Murias is that fish sauce, which again was asur because of the wine content, right? And Rashi says it's known that they put in wine. Okay, that's a fact because most people do it. Let's assume there's wine in there. So interestingly, there was a machlekes in the Mishnah in terms of hana. Rabbanan say you can still have hana from it, right? As opposed to Rab Meir, who says it's asur b'hana. But according to Rabbanan, murias, which has wine, is mutar b'hana. Because it's mixed in, it's not, it's not actual wine, it's a mix, so it's only asur b'achila, you can have hana. And over here we're saying, if there was certainly wine put into this pickle juice, it's asur b'hana. Why is it different between murias from that fish juice? To show Rabbanan b'hana that Rabbanan allowed hana. Oh, says the Gemara, Hasam, there it's different. Lavuri zuhama. They put that wine in order to counteract the pungent, effect of the fish. It's not meant to enhance it. It's like Rashi says on the bottom line, "Kiman de azal ibud." It's like you're just destroying the wine. It's like the wine is non-existent. It's just there to perform a certain function, to be an antidote, to repel the pungency of the fish. And therefore, we don't have to reckon with it to the extent that it's considered like wine, which is asur b'hana. We say, look, don't eat it, but you could have hana. It's not actual wine. Hacha here by the pickle juice. The wine is there to enhance its flavor. So it's like visible, it's like tangible. It's like you have wine in front of you. So it has the halacha of stam yenam, which is asur b'hana. So that's Chizkiya's opinion. Again, regarding the murios, Rabbanan say it's okay b'hana because the wine is gone. It's absorbed, it's non-existent. By the kvashim, if you know there's wine in there, it's asur b'hana. If it's just a concern, maybe, then it's mutar b'hana. Rabbi Yechon Amar, he says, afilu b'yado nami mutar. No, by the pickle juice as well. Even if you know there's wine in there, it's still okay for hana. Because unless it's pure wine, there's no isra hana. It's a mix, it's okay. Umayishnos, now we'll ask a kasha in the other direction. You're telling me it's mutar b'hana according to all shitas, even Reb Meir? So why is it that by the murias, by that fish sauce, umayishnos and murias, the Reb Meir according to the asur b'hana, you can't have hana, even though it's not plain wine, it's a wine mix. Some yadiyah mamash. Difference is over there. You feel the wine. Rashi says they dip into the juice. You feel it. So it's there. It's tangible. And therefore it's asur b'hana. Hacha. As opposed to the wine added to the pickle juice. You're not eating the juice. You're just taking out the pickle. Lo yadeh mashan or mashai. Says Rashi, you don't eat the reitiv, you don't eat the juice. You only eat the vegetable. It's meant to preserve it, to pickle it, right? So you're not really eating the juice with the wine. Therefore you can just ignore it. It's not an integral part of your food right now. And therefore, it doesn't have to be reckoned with to the extent that it should be asur b'hana. As long as it's asur b'achila, because of the wine content, that's enough. But it's mutar b'hana. So certainly the kvashim is on a different level than the murias. Question is in which direction? According to Chizkiya, if you know for a fact that there's wine in there, it's asur even b'hana. And even according to Rabbanan that allow anoah by the murias, that's because it's just to counteract the fish smell, whatever. But here, it's actually adding to the flavor. Rabbi Yechon took the other direction. He says just the opposite. He says by the pickled stuff, even if you know for a fact there's wine in there, it's mutter b'anoah according to all shittas. Even Rabbi Meir says murias is also here. It's mutter because you're not benefiting directly from that wine. Okay, let's do a quick review on the basics of bishul akum. There are two conditions required to make it bishul akum: something which is not edible raw, and something which is served at a formal dinner. The guy had to have kavana for cooking as opposed to just trying to make a fire and burn down the place. So even if incidentally something gets cooked, it doesn't matter. If the item had already been cooked by Yisrael to the point of machal ben Yisrael, and the guy came and finished it, doesn't matter. That's even if it was already sitting in a basket off the flame, the guy put it back on the flame, it doesn't matter, because it was already halachically cooked beforehand. Now, if something's sitting on the flame, raw on the flame, the guy came and flips it, or the guy came and mixed the pot, doesn't matter, because it would have happened without him. If the guy started the process, the Yid came and completed the process, that also was fine. We spoke about a Yid lighting the fire in the oven, or placing the food in the oven, or just stoking the flames. And according to Tosfos, even throwing in a kisam, that would work, certainly by the pasakum, by the bishul. It's machlekes rishonim. Whether just lighting the fire would work. We spoke about the guy salting that fish. According to Chizki, it's okay, even though he made it edible, it's not considered an act of cooking. We spoke about the different types of things that could involve kashrus issues and how to get around that. Next in time, lefgam was a discussion, and different types of shisaha. Some have a concern, some don't. And we concluded regarding the halacha of kvashim, pickled items. All the best to you. Hatzlacha Rav.